Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch Kick Choke Chat. As you can see, Sean's not here because he's off being a successful actor once again. And we've been bugging him about it all day, or I've been trash talking him all day. But having said that, we're really happy and proud of him. I'm really happy that he's doing so good. We're supposed to have Jamie Mancini here. He's a high-level wrestler and MMA athlete, and he's going to be jumping on soon. But regardless, the show must go on, and we'll let him in as soon as he gets on. And if he doesn't get on, this is going to quickly turn into a host chat. So I'm really happy. I'm joined tonight by my teachers, both of my senseis. I only have two. I've only ever had two. Sensei Gary Legacy, who's my karate and white crane teacher, and Sensei Nicholas Svino, who is my Iaido teacher. And they've been my teachers for 34 and 31 years respectively, which means I'm not a quitter. And I think that's quite a long time, actually. I thought we could, because I've been trash talking them, and while we're waiting for Jamie to get on here, I just wanted to throw it out to anybody who wants to say anything about Sean Benson, like either of you. The one thing I'm going to say about him is the guy's had his trials and tribulations, but he's like a phoenix who's rising out of the ashes once again. Like, that guy started off as hot as you possibly could in the acting realm, and as a martial artist and as a musician, and just crashed and burned, and then now has resurrected himself and is more successful than he's ever been. And I'm super proud of him. Since Legacy, you got anything you want to say about Benzo?
I might have mentioned this already, but probably the best thing I ever seen is we were doing bit parts in a biker show with him, and
That's right.
we were in a garage. Two bike clubs were gonna shoot it out, and Benson was supposed to be all drugged up, and the garage doors were closed. There must have been like 15 of us in there. Were you there, Rand?
Yeah, I was with you. Yeah, I was an extra with that too. Yeah, I remember.
And it got really tense because it was like a drug scene, and the guys pulled out guns and and stuff like that. And he's got this way of sort of like taking over what's going on, because whatever character he plays, like, he is really good at being that character, So anyway, to make a long story short, after the scene was over, the guy called cut, whatever. And so the garage door started to come out, and all the bikers, 14, 15 bikers there, they all started to walk out. But I knew Benson, so I was sort of waiting for him. I think Randy was there as well. And I just heard the director say, we're really lucky to have him, because it was such a intense feeling in there. It was almost like a real fight thing going on. And I think that they really appreciate him for he's really a good actor. I say this all the time, I don't think I've ever met Benson myself.
Hey, Jamie, you're joined us. We've started, so we're streaming live to YouTube right now, and we're recording this. But before we get to you, I just want to throw it to Sensei Svino so he can complete any thoughts about Sean Benson that he's been thinking about. And there's a lot of background noise, so I'm not sure who that is.
I have a lot of background noise.
Yeah, quite a bit.
All right, let me try to move. Give me about 2 minutes here. I'll just move.
No problem. Svino, what do you want to say about Benzo?
Love that guy. Known him, a long time now, and he studied Iaido with me. I've paired off with him in fighting drills in karate. We've rolled a fair amount of BJJ together, and I just like the guy. He's a part of the family, and if I were to have a house full of brothers, he'd be one of them, and he'd fit right in.
Yeah, except he'd be messier than all the other brothers.
Is he messy? I've never lived with a guy.
Yeah, yeah,
We have.
yeah, yeah. I'll tell you the story one time about when we went out there to Los Angeles, and you know, he was having us all out there, and he only had like 2 bath towels for the entire apartment for like 6 people, right? Oh, Pam is connecting to audio, but anyway, I don't know. I guess, oh, there he
Here we go.
is. There, Jamie is back. Nice to see you,
Back.
man.
Is that better?
A lot better.
That is
good,
way,
okay.
yeah, that is way better.
Sorry about that. It's gonna get quiet soon. I'm backstage at the green room. Got a show starting soon, so.
Okay, no
Awesome.
worries. No worries, brother. We like to jump in with a question right away, so I'm gonna do that. I know you have a high wrestling background, and so the first question I want to ask you is, for people who don't know, what makes wrestling different than other grappling arts, in your opinion? What is the thing about wrestling that's different than judo, BJJ? Yeah.
I think wrestling primarily is it's a true sport where it's basically takedowns are in its truest form, especially in the freestyle. Because in judo, obviously you have the jacket, and now they've changed the rules around where you can't even attack the legs anymore. So it's really just an upper body sport. It's like Greco-Roman wrestling with the jacket on. And jiu-jitsu, because there's so much emphasis on the submission, you don't want to waste too much energy standing. So the difference between wrestling really is the takedown, which makes it so effective. And again, you hear it so much in MMA, mixed martial arts. When you see a fight, the wrestler dictates where they want the fight to go. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys, and even judokas, and you saw Ronda Rousey, weren't strong enough to be able to get the fight to the ground, even if they are high-level grapplers with respect to what they're doing. Because again, you can't take away their accomplishments. Just wrestling's a little bit different when it comes to being able to put the guy on the floor fast.
Amazing. Sensei, you got any thoughts on that? Like you've done BJJ, you've done some wrestling, and you're a high-level judo person. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, 100%. I agree with that. I think one of the downfalls of modern era judo is that they've taken a lot of our choices away. But it's funny. I grew up, in the world of judo, and I used to watch wrestlers and think that it was entirely strength based. And of course, as you know, wrestlers are really strong. But then I took courses with guys that were high level wrestlers, and I realized the skill level is just off the hook. It's just a different style, right? The off balancing and the methodology of taking people down. It's really scientific, but it was completely, it was not obvious to me for the first 25 years of my life.
That when a year ago, when I started BJJ and I walked in there and there was a couple of other guys who were white belts, right? We're there. And then these guys just crushed me into the mat. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? You've done BJJ before. And they're like, no, I've just done 12 years of wrestling. Right. So
Right.
It was like, oh, okay. That's why my face is ground into the mat here and you're climbing on top of me. Anyway, Jamie, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I want to do a bit of an introduction for you, if you're okay with that. And then Suino's going to jump in with our first question. So as we've been talking about, Jamie Mancini's career started in athletics with his devotion to amateur wrestling. He's won 7 Canadian national titles, and he's representing Canada at many international events, notably winning a silver medal at the 2010 Commonwealth Games in Delhi. After that, Jamie made a transition to MMA, and he trained with this little known name, Faraz Zahabi, a TriStar, right? This little known name, who, if you don't know who that is, he also trains GSP. So high level wrestler, trained with the highest level people. Also, he's in a green room. He said, I'm in the green room right now. So said Mr. Mancini's also participated in many different media roles, right? Reality shows, radio shows, short films, special skills, movie roles, podcast, TV appearances. And if you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and go to the Boom Boom Show, right? www.youtube.com, the Boom Boom Show. You're gonna laugh. Like when you watch it, you're gonna, well, it's not for the young, right? So but for me, I really was in here working out today and I was laughing my head off while I was watching it. So I love that show. You got a new follower today, Jamie.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know presently he's performing stand-up comedy, right? And Cesar Suino is going to ask you a question in a minute, but I wanted to know about your moniker, Boom Boom Mancini, right? Because there's another Boom Boom Mancini who's a fighter, right? Ray Boom Boom Mancini, who's a very famous boxer. And how did you get that moniker? Where'd you go with that? How did you get that?
Yeah, it's definitely homage to Ray Boom Boom. When I was wrestling, I utilized a lot of kind of like, I was very jittery, kind of hyperactive. I always put the pressure, very offensive. And I remember one guy, and then Boom Boom was a fighter in the 80s. He famously killed Dooku Kim in the ring, and they changed championship fights from 15 rounds to 12 rounds because of him, because of all the pressure he put on and how dangerous they were seeing the 15-round fights were. So it's definitely homage to him. And one of the older, I think it was, I don't even remember who it was at this point. I think it was maybe a referee, was like, "Hey, Boom Boom." And I was like, okay, I don't even know who that was. I had no idea what boxing, who 80s era boxers were, other than obviously Mike Tyson. So I jumped MMA.
Nice. Can you hear us okay? The camera's jumping a little bit. Jamie, can you hear us okay at this point? All right. Yeah, you're a little pixelated. Hopefully this will come through. So I'm going to ask you the first historical question. When did you first start martial arts or wrestling? What brought you there? And what was it like when you got started?
So I started kind of here in Canada. So it's a grade 7, being a shooter and for active. All right, I got the rest. What is this? And then I thought, not. And, I don't know how to start.
Sorry, Jamie, we're not getting any of this, brother. It's really, it's click, 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 click. We can see your mouth moving, but we can't hear anything that you're saying.
All right. So you're saying. My wife.
This is great. Sense of Legacy is laughing and Sense of Suino is annoyed. So Sydney, while Mr. Mancini's trying to get his audio worked out, make sure you light up in the chat where people can send their questions if they have questions for Mr. Mancini as we get going on this. I think people know where to do it, but there she goes. She put it in there. So let's see, what'd you do today when you woke up? Did you go to the dojo today? Have you trained today?
Yeah. 8 to 9, probably 9:30. We did some weight training. Wayne Bear and John and 5 or 6 of them.
Nice.
Wonder if Jamie looks like he's frozen now.
Yeah.
Maybe you could send those questions in to us, so we'd have something to talk about.
Right. I'm gonna stop his video for right now. Sydney, you can communicate with him, Sydney, and the three of us will continue to talk for a little bit while give him your cell phone number or whatever you need to, Sydney, to get him going here.
Yeah, there's his audio still clicking.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Trying
some
to
bad
get back.
Wi-Fi. We're gonna have to mute that.
Just like
There we
that.
go. Thanks. Perfect.
No problem.
Hey, so folks who are on the live stream, sorry about that, guys. As you can see, we're having some technical difficulties. So we're gonna carry on as best we can, and hopefully Jamie will get a better connection.
Says, you know, what was happening with your day today? Did you go to the dojo yet?
I did not. Today is generally a recovery day. Well, I can't say I didn't go to the dojo. I went to do some work at the dojo. But classes went on in my absence. Today was a high performance day. I had a bunch of medical care. I got a vitamin drip IV. I did my cold plunge. Took a bunch of fish oil, all kinds of stuff I do for recovery.
Okay, well, here's something I'd love to unpack with both of you.
Hmm.
I want to get this annex. I want to get the other room. And I've got 2 days to make this decision. And I'm chasing 14 people to pay their dues right now. Right. So, which is super annoying. So, and then I talked to the other black belts in here, and I think I've never done this before. And it's a question that I have. Says Lacey, have you ever run a contract based? Is there a contract that you make people sign, or is it just like, how do you do that? I know other martial arts in town, like I've always kind of shied away from that. Like, you know, you got to sign this contract. But right now I'm like, oh, it's so annoying to have to chase 14 people for their dues. I want to pass them on to debt collectors. So since Legacy, have you ever done that? You ever made people sign contracts before, or?
When I was working as that, and I had with Harold Warden and those persons, they had to sign a contract. It also was, you know, a release and all that stuff. Yeah. People almost always try to get out of it. That's mainly because most persons don't stay. It's too, martial arts is a bit too demanding. So I guess maybe that's why the businesses sort of cater to the students. Like the students are changing karate as opposed to karate changing the students. When it comes to that, I just downgrade and just lock the door on those people and tell them to go somewhere else. I mean, right now I'm not heavily into business like you guys are. I'm sort of on the going out edge, but enjoying whatever I can do or wherever I can go. If you're running a business like that and you have commitments, you know, I would make sure that the other people paid their commitments too. That would be my advice, I guess.
Setsino, what about you? Contracts? Do they sign contracts at JMac? Like, I mean,
They do. They get the free intro lessons, and then they sign up and pay for 2 months up front. And as part and parcel of that, they agree to another 10 months. So in the first 2 months, they can opt out. But after that, I make everybody stay for another 10. So they've been there a year. After a year, everybody's on month to month. And then we got these long-term people. There he is, who've been around for many, many years since then.
yeah. The one thing I just want to say about that is it's interesting, sense of legacy, what you're saying, because it's like the kids want to be here and then it's the parents who don't pay. So you got this kid who actually wants to train. They show up and you got to look at the kid and say, your parents haven't paid your dues, right? Like, and then you're chasing these parents across the parking lot as they're dropping their kids off and trying to peel out of here as fast as they can because they know they got to pay, right? Yeah, it's so weird, but I like that approach, Sensino, of because we do 2 weeks for free. Like we basically just say, come in for 2 weeks, do everything you want. And then I ask people to commit 3 months at a time, like just keep committing 3 months at a time. But then that means 4 times a year, I'm chasing 15 or 20 people around to pay their 3-month membership instead of just saying, sign this piece of paper and let me just put it in the bank account.
Yeah,
like-
it's never a perfect system, but you want to get it as close to the point where people are training because they want to train and you don't have to worry about becoming a debt collector, right? You want to focus on martial arts. Hey, Jamie, can you hear us? We saw you briefly for a moment. Love to have you back on the call.
Dead air. This is like when the radio goes blank, right?
That's when you need Benson. You just start talking.
I don't know if Jamie's up in Quebec. Maybe the smoke has gotten to him.
What can you tell us about Iaido in Japan since Sensei Yaguchi passed? What's going on there?
Well, I mean, there's, it's still Iaido's still widely practiced. There's been a lot of politics, as there always are. So the big organization that was there when I was active, about, I don't know, 8-10 years after I left, kind of split into two organizations. So now there's two big organizations. Neither one is as big. I'm glad they're keeping it going. Jamie, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I hear you guys.
You're way better. You're way better.
Oh God. All right. Sorry
Thank you
about
so
that,
much.
man. I'm trying to figure it out. I guess so many people jumped on the Wi-Fi here. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, let's do what we can. So let me, sorry about that. We didn't get your answer at all. So what brought you into your first dojo or
Got me
wrestling
started,
gym?
yeah.
And what was it like?
Yeah, it was just like anybody else, super hyperactive kid in the 7th grade, not much to do. And then kind of jumped on the team, saw the outfit, was a bit turned off with the wrestling singlet. And then I started, my friends convinced me to do a competition and I was hooked. And that was it. I never looked back. I improved quite quickly up here in Canada. So it was fun from there. Yeah.
Were you, I mean, when I go and watch kids wrestling programs, it's remarkable how hard they train. Was that your experience?
Well, it was interesting because I was a high-level hockey player, and then on the 7th and 8th grade, we didn't have much wrestling here up in Canada. But if I would literally drive, my coach was real good. He was able to at Riverdale Wrestling Club. Shout out to them, my first wrestling club, and they were able to bring me out. Literally, you drive like 45 minutes upstate New York, and you have all those towns that had like so many kids wrestling. So I improved quickly because I'd go to a Montreal tournament. I might have 4 matches, like 3-4 tournaments a year. And then maybe the dual meets, which were a match every week or 2 weeks during the school season. I would literally go up to upstate New York and do all those towns, Peru, New York, Messina, Schenectady, all those towns that are right here on the border, the Canadian border. And they had tournaments every weekend. So I'd be getting 7-8 matches, even though it was folk style and we were doing freestyle. I would still, I would improve quite quickly the first 2 years because I was doing that when the other kids weren't.
How old were you, Jamie, when you started wrestling? You said you played hockey.
7th grade.
7th grade.
7th grade, yeah.
Okay.
11 years
was-
old, yeah, 10, 11.
Was it at your school or did you go to a wrestling club? Like, where did you get introduced to wrestling?
So luckily, the coach at my school was also the coach who took care of the local club. So he took care of about 3-4 high schools in the area and middle schools. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was like the first day you walked in there? Were you like rejacked about it or were you like nervous? Like, how were you when you walked in the door that first time?
No, I didn't like it. I thought it was a silly sport. I probably imagined hitting each other in the head with steel chairs. I don't think I pictured quite what it was going to be like. And I remember quitting quite quickly. It was the competition that really got me. My friends convinced me. They're like, "Why don't you compete? You'll enjoy it. You're so small, and there's actually your weight class here. You won't get beat up and bullied by us."
And I think that's around my weight class, I think, right? Like you're around 155, 150 pounder. Is that where you are or you were?
No, I wrestled at 60 kilos, so 132, and I fought at 135 and 125. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You fought Malcolm once, right?
Yep. Malcolm Borden. Yeah, I lost to him. Yeah.
How is that? Not losing to him. How was the fight? Like what stands out in your mind about that fight?
It was interesting because I started MMA really late, like 29 years old. I didn't throw a punch until I was like 28, 29. My brother was a high-level kickboxer, but I never did it because I was so involved in wrestling. And what ended up happening was is I started when the WEC. Anyway, it's a bit of a long story, but when the WEC became the UFC, all those lighter weight guys in Montreal were going to transition to the UFC. We had a few guys, Duras's brother Ayman Zahabi. We had Yves Jabouin and Ivan Menjivar, and guys who were in the UFC from TriStar. Now they had a chance. They didn't have to compete at 155 in the UFC. They could go down to 135. So I was coaching a lot of those guys, and then I just started fighting. And when I started fighting, I think it was a couple weeks in, Malcolm came down for a training camp, and it was one of my first partners, sparring partners, and he just beat the hell out of me. And a couple of years later, I was fighting him for a world title in Montreal, and the fight was going well. I was winning the entire fight until I got caught in an armbar. He's so slick on the ground; it was tough. Yeah.
Yeah, he trains with George, right? Like Toronto BJJ. He's good up there. So you do this wrestling. You compete a lot of times. How do you get interested in MMA? Like, and how do you find yourself a TriStar? Like, what's the path to that for you?
Well, that's the interesting thing is TriStar is literally down the road from the Olympic Training Center, from the Wrestling Training Center. So it's really not far. Like if you're in Montreal, it's like 2 metro stations away, 2 subway stations. You guys call it subway, yeah. Metro is the French version. So basically, like I said, there was guys who were in the WEC already. And in 2012, when I didn't qualify for London, I was coaching some of those guys. And, eventually you take a year off wrestling and you're coaching guys, and then they say, okay, put the helmet on. And next thing you know, they're like, okay, well, you could punch us and take us down. And I'm like, what? And then you start sparring, and then all of a sudden you're in full on sparring, and I'm doing well. And my brother was a kickboxing coach and a really good kickboxer, Kyokushin black belt. There's like tournaments named after him in Canada. He's very, very high level, James Mancini. He's like has viral videos of like wheel kick knockouts on YouTube and stuff. So he was a high level striker, although I never did it. So he started coaching me. And yeah, one day the UFC was there. The UFC was there covering like one of George's training camps, and they saw me and they're like, "Hey, this guy's pretty good." And then they're like, "Take it easy, stop beating up everybody." I was just taking guys down. And then I had a fight a couple months later, professional fight. I never fought amateur.
Whoa. So your brother did Kyokushinkai. You never did any striking. Like, that's interesting. How'd your brother go the karate way and you went the wrestling way? Like how'd that happen?
I think he was more of like the bodybuilder, like guy who did karate when he was younger, going to bodybuilding. And then when he got 17 or 18, he started like amateur boxing, Golden Gloves type things, and did like a lot of kickboxing tournaments. And then he started to get really serious in Kyokushin, did like the world tournament stuff. So he just went one way and I went the other way. That was it. Like he wasn't interested in high school in wrestling at all.
Okay. So we didn't get a chance to introduce ourselves to you, Jamie, before. Normally we do that, but Sense Legacy and I are both up here in Canada with you. And Sense Legacy is actually from New Brunswick and lived in Quebec for a long time in Rimouski. And Sense Suino's down in Michigan. And so I just want to share that with you when you're saying up here, we're up here with you, and Sense Suino's
awesome.
Down. Right? Yeah.
So, he's the minority. Let's get him.
Yeah, man. Come on. It'll be fun. Sign the waiver.
He's got a
I'll be doing
5-foot
some
race.
work in Michigan too pretty soon.
Hey, man, come on by. Or if you're doing shows, I want to know about them. We'll go out to them.
Yeah.
I watched a few of your fights preparing for today, and your ground game, takedown, the wrestling pedigree is obvious, but your ground game isn't that different from a judo ground game. Like, when did you get into that kind of aspect? Did you start doing BJJ? Did you start doing judo grappling? Like, what got you going there?
So obviously, because I was so offensive, I like to do a lot of takedowns, and then I started training at BTT, Brazilian Top Team Canada, with Fabio Holanda. Because George, GSP started with him, so I think he was coming to the wrestling club a lot. So I would coach him actually in New Brunswick. He did a few tournaments there, Fabio. He competed out in New Brunswick and a few in Montreal. So I would coach him, and then he would coach me in jiu-jitsu. And then when I went over to TriStar, my game was top dominant game. And I lost a lot of fights by submission because I would take the guy down so quickly that I wouldn't give myself any time to like work. And then, it takes a second to take a guy down, and then you're 4 minutes, 59 seconds in his game. So I tell even the wrestlers now that I coach, take your time taking guys down, make them work on the feet. chain wrestle a little bit, and then you take them down, it might be a different game. But like with Malcolm, I was taking him down. I was taking him down more quicker than I thought. I thought the striking would be dangerous, but I was able to get my hands on him quickly. And I think he just had so many positions to switch his hips. But anyways, I'm digressing. The point is my game was a very top heavy game. I worked a lot of ground and pound, but I think because of that, I didn't work enough to like just basic submission defense. I didn't go in enough people's guards. I would always put the big gloves on and try to beat guys up in the ground and pound. And if I look back, I should have done more jiu-jitsu competitions and have guys really play with tricky guards. Because at our weight class, everybody has a tricky guard because everybody used to be down the jiu-jitsu guys and everybody's used to being on their back. Because like Malcolm is probably the smallest guy in his gym for 15 years. So he's probably used to being on his back and he's so tricky from his back. And that's where I found a lot of the guys at the weight class where they were all so good from their back. And I was so good at taking them down. So yes, it's great that I'm taking them down, but it takes me a second to take them down. And then they have 4 minutes and 59 seconds to work. So that's where, if I could go back, I would have really worked that like not so much ground and pound. I would have actually worked more submission defense and having guys throw up submissions on me a lot more. I didn't do enough of that.
Man, that's interesting. That rapid rise to the big leagues, even in amateur martial arts, my judo students study with me for 5 to 10 years. If they get good fast, a lot of times there's holes in their game, right? Because they've got great throws or something, and they just don't learn the wisdom yet because they just haven't done it. But I haven't heard a fighter talk about it the way you have just now. That's cool to hear.
No, that's like spot on. Exactly how my career went. It was I picked up the striking to takedown, like they call it shoot boxing. I picked that up very quickly. What I didn't pick up was again, as you can see with my record, the submissions who came always when I was on top. So it's just crazy that I had that kind of career. Like I never would get hurt or anything. I never took damage. I would win 99% of the fights that I would even lose.
But man, I got to tell you, your game was good. Like watching you on the top, controlling people's shoulders, and you have my favorite move of all time, which is to have somebody's arm. You're on top, you have somebody's arm, and you put your shin over their arm to hold it in place. So now you're fighting a one-arm player. I absolutely love that. I saw you do that a few times.
Yeah, a little, I guess, little crucifix, like Gary Goodridge or whatever. Just kind of trap one arm.
Mm.
We worked that a lot. And again, it's something that I would work every day in the ground and pound. You could do it on the dummy. You could do it on Bill. Put him on the ground and kind of work windshield wiper your legs to block those arms, throw punches, and you could do a lot of damage from there.
Randy, you got a question?
I guess the question I have for you, Jamie, is I have my first grappling tournament on July 15th. What advice would you give a 51-year-old white belt in BJJ who has spent their whole life in karate, like in Iaido? Like I've done sword karate, like your brother, like Kyokushinkai, like I do Shorin-ryu, like very traditional, old style. That's Sensei Legacy is my karate teacher. Competed internationally in karate. And now at 51, I'm going to go do a grab tournament for just over a year of BJJ. What advice would you give me?
Well, first of all, you've got this. You're looking good shape for your age, man. I hope in 10, 12 years, I'm in good shape like you. Second off, I would say focus on the wrestling. Stay on top. In the last month of your training, just stay on top. You're going to find that a lot of those white belt, lower belt tournaments, a lot of guys win just with top pressure. And is it IBJJF rules?
Yeah, it's at the Pan Am Center in Markham. Yeah.
So if it's IBJJF rules, they're gonna score a lot of takedowns and top pressure. You can get on top and just practice now staying on top for the next month and make sure that you can stay on top for a long time because you'll win a lot of fights just with the advantage. Like don't sleep on the advantage. People want to jump submissions, but if you could. Like I went to the World Championships and almost got a medal, and I beat a bunch of tough guys just by staying on top. So I think if you work your takedowns a little bit, and if a guy shoots on you, you sprawl and you don't jump guillotine, that stuff helps.
So what's the high percentage takedown that you think people should focus on when they're new? What's a high percentage takedown that people should be focusing on? As a wrestler, you've got an opinion on this for sure.
I like single leg, all variations of single leg to their chest pressure or run the pipe. I think people are afraid of single legs because of the Kimura and the guillotines and the high elbows and stuff. But if you keep your head high, I think single legs are important. Look, I'm a small guy, and guys are sprawling really quickly. So double legs obviously is better, but harder to get. It's easier to get one leg than two legs. So I mastered the single leg, high crotch, single leg head inside, and just keep your head up and put yourself in single leg. Make guys work. The fun thing is if you make somebody work, they're hopping around on one leg when you have a single leg and tires them out, especially jiu-jitsu guys. So I'd say shoot single leg. Don't be afraid in training to shoot single leg, and just be conscious of guillotines and kimuras, and the rest should work itself out. And if you're a super explosive guy, I would say double leg, but I wasn't super explosive. I was fast, but double legs takes more energy.
Yeah. I don't know, since the Suino, since the legacy, should I be explosive? Can I be explosive or not?
I would dare say.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that game, so I'm just being quiet.
Yeah.
I know
You-
you can be explosive for sure.
Do you have any questions, since legacy, or any thoughts or anything? Like, just interrupt if you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Suino, up to you.
Well, Jamie, I know you gotta leave pretty early, so I think I want to make sure we get in our 10 questions. So,
So before we do that, since Sensei Copeland did send a question in.
oh, perfect. Let's do that.
Yeah. And Sensei Copeland's a high-level karate practitioner in Windsor, Ontario, near Detroit. And he is asking the question, on the double leg, where do you want your head? On the inside or the outside?
So again, this is very controversial, and I know the Americans like to have their head on the inside, and you'll see the Russians put their head on the outside. Essentially, I do a head on the outside, and yes, you are susceptible to guillotine. There's no question about that. But again, if you're cutting the corner properly, and as soon as the guy attacks a guillotine, you just think about duck under and putting your weight in that guy's armpit, you will avoid that. Now, when you put your head on the inside, they call it like a suitcase double leg. I don't like that personally because it provokes a lot of neck injuries, a lot of stingers. Guys who do that, they usually in their career have messed up necks. And it doesn't say that it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. The timing, sometimes the guy stands up straight, you blast double, put your hands around their knees, you put your head in their chest. There's nothing wrong with that. Although if you like your neck, there is something wrong with that because you will at some point destroy your neck. And there's no question about it. So I didn't like to do that. I like to put my hand on the outside, get in kind of clean, work my timing. And I would just say, try them both. The most important thing is timing. Shoot a whole bunch of double legs. All practice long, shoot double legs. And then your body will know where it's comfortable, and then you adjust. Hey, if you're comfortable going suitcase double, I would say just make sure every practice you're warming your neck up, you're doing your bridges, and you're making sure that your neck is nice and strong. I don't like it. I like to go head on the outside. And yes, susceptible to guillotines, but if you cut the corner well and you keep your head up, you will be, you won't get guillotined so much. So it's a great question. I think it's just about shooting a whole bunch of double legs, man. And there isn't really no wrong answer, but I like my neck personally.
So Sensei Copeland says, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
What can you do to get rid of the cauliflower ear?
Jamie, can you,
To get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
To get rid of the cauliflower ear. That's a tough one. You can't really get rid of it, although you want to address it right away. So get it drained right away and then get it taped up and glue it to your ear really quickly and keep it taped to your ear for a week. I know it's annoying, but walk around with a toque on or a beanie. But that's the only way you can really avoid that, or else it's just gonna keep breaking.
So Jamie, I know Setsuna wants to move to the 10 questions, but I have a question about, the guillotine, single leg, double leg.
I don't think you can hear a word of you're saying right now. It's got the headphones off. Yeah, we'd better check with him and see what time he's got to hit the road, because we may not have him for much longer.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. Jamie, how much time do we have with you? Because you
Yeah,
definitely.
that's it. Yeah, 15 minutes for sure.
Okay, so then we should jump into the 10 questions. This is, if we got 15 minutes, that's, and then maybe at the end of this, we can talk about some of the events that are
Yep.
coming.
Cool.
Yep.
So-
All right. Cool. So we'll go through these. Here's the deal, Jamie. We ask every guest these 10 questions. We want your impulsive answers. First thing that comes to mind. But then if you want to elaborate, feel free to do so. I'll ask the
All
first
right.
one, and then we'll kind of ping pong with me and Randy. So what's the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
Single leg. Jab to single. Yeah.
Okay, so then the next question will be, who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
I would say Guibi Sisauri. He was my training partner. He was Olympic silver medalist, world champion. And then him and GSP, it's close 1 and 2. I've trained with both of them. I've trained alongside both of them. I'll have to go Gia number 1 because he was my mentor from the beginning.
Yeah, so before we move on, you mentioned the name, like we're not name droppers here, so I didn't want to like prod you on, but how is your relationship with GSP? You said he's up there as the most influential for you. Like, why is that?
Yeah. I mean, I met him in 2001. I was coming out of high school into the sports studies program, and he was at the Olympic Training Center, and he just showed up with Faraz, and he never left the wrestling club. He would be there twice a week, no matter what. So we became quite close, and we trained together. And he took wrestling very seriously, obviously. So we were all helping him out. Everybody at the National Training Center. Yeah.
Awesome. Says Serino?
So
Having said that, who do you think's the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Gotta go Bruce Lee. Or you know what? I'll take that back. I guess I go Royce Gracie, just because what he did for martial arts, what he did for MMA. MMA obviously encompasses martial arts. I think what he did by putting it on the map, winning those fights, being the smaller guy, winning all those UFCs in the early days. I think that was probably he was the most influential for martial arts. And then, it goes by era, obviously Dana White and GSP and Conor McGregor. And there's so many people that kind of build with the sport. It's interesting to see. If you're talking pure martial arts without MMA stuff, I would say Bruce Lee. And if you're going mixed martial arts, you've got to go with Gracie, Royce.
Says Legacy said Bruce Lee. That was his. And other people have said Royce Gracie as well. But my question for you, the next question for you is, I'm assuming you're still doing martial arts. So what excites you about the next 5 years of your martial arts training?
What excites me is finally being able to focus on jiu-jitsu and perhaps getting a brown and purple belt, black belt. I never put on the gi with Fabio, so I never was able to get those belts. Now I'm with Faraz at TriStar because I'm coaching now. I'm one of the head coaches for the wrestling, so I'm able to get some belts. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and then just training with my brother and perhaps looking to get some belts in Kyokushin if my brother will let me. I love Kyokushin. I love karate, karate kickboxing. I mean, I've stayed away from Muay Thai now because it just beats the body up too much when you get older.
Well, if at the end of these 10 questions, you can ask Sense of Legacy some questions, because he went to New York City and he fought the very first bare knuckle Kyokushinkai world champion.
Wow.
Yeah, Sato. It was Sato, right? Sensei, that's who you fought. Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, it's
Do you know my brother then, Gary?
Pardon me?
Do you know my brother?
I'm not sure.
Justin Mancini, no? Okay, I thought maybe he did the Cup of New. I think in New Brunswick they had a tournament after him, the Mancini Cup, a few years back.
So Jamie, just so you know, when Sense of Legacy fought that guy, it was in like 1976. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I was 4 years old and you weren't born, but
Yeah.
anyway, Sense of I think you got the next question, right?
Yes, sir. Next question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
Why didn't you slow down? You went everything a million miles an hour. Yeah, I live life really quickly. I'm very hyperactive. I do a lot of things, even the comedy thing. I'm going every night. When I do something, I do it with my heart. So I hope he acknowledges that and says, like, maybe, you could have slowed down, but that was a great effort.
Nice. So do you have a favorite film or TV martial artist, even if they're not a real martial artist?
Yeah, I got to meet Van Damme when he came to TriStar. So that was pretty cool. I think even though I wasn't big into the karate thing, I was a big Van Damme fan. So I'd say Jean-Claude Van Damme for sure.
Nice.
He's
Well,
nuts, by the way.
it's too bad Sean Benson wasn't here because that's his guy too. Benson loves
Yeah.
Sean Van Damme. Yeah. That's Swino.
You have a favorite, do you have a martial artist, living or dead, in all time that you wish you could train with?
I mean, I know it's cliche. I got to go with Bruce Lee. It would be so interesting to see his philosophy, his concepts. And I would always, I really want, I know he trained with, who's that judo guy? Judo in the 60s and 70s, they called him judo. What's his name?
Oh, Judo Jean LaBelle?
Yeah, I know he
Yeah.
trained with judo Junior Belt, but I would love to just grab onto him and see his instincts, if he has any grappling instincts. That would be my dream. Because everybody talks about it, but like, I don't know, did he do one practice? Was it a whole week? Was it a whole year? I would love to just grab Bruce Lee in a 2-on-1 or a Russian tie and see what his first instinct is. And then I would know right away, oh, you don't have any grappling.
Man, you can be famous as the guy that hurt the most famous martial artist of all time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is mine, Jamie. So if everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit you've gotten from martial arts, regardless if they train or not, what would that benefit be that they're getting? Like, what would they be getting that you've gotten?
Yep. That's a great question. And I would say humble, to be humble, because that's one thing martial arts does. You can't be a bully because eventually you get beat up. And you become so humble because you realize, like, even in comedy, when someone gives you a hard time or you bomb or if I'm having a bad day, you just learn to roll with it. And and because you're humble, because you know that, hey, like, you're gonna have good days and bad days. And I think the world is not enough people have been punched in the face or choked out or taken down over and over again. So they're, walking around with a chip on their shoulder, and it's not their fault. It's just because they've never been through that. And society right now accepts mediocrity where martial arts doesn't. So that's one thing that I think I would like everybody to have.
I love that. Society accepts mediocrity, but martial arts doesn't. That's going on the wall of fame up here at Punch Kick Choke Chat. Last two questions of the 10 questions come as a pair. What is your greatest achievement? What is your greatest regret?
Quite simply, I know the MMA stuff was dear to me. It was super important, but I'm a wrestler through and through, and winning the Commonwealth Games medal was huge because it was such a tough. It was so I'm coming. It was so tough. They're calling me. I'll be a few minutes. It was so difficult. The Commonwealth Games, to go through everything I went through, and then the biggest regret obviously is not qualifying for the Olympics. I did every other competition. I did the World Championship, World University, Commonwealth, Pan Am, and that was the only one I didn't do. So not qualifying for the Olympics. It was really the regret.
Well,
Fair enough.
listen,
So it sounds like you got to go, right?
Yeah, I got about 3 minutes. Yeah.
yeah. So I just want to say thanks for your time tonight. I know it was a bit choppy, but
Yeah, sorry about that again. Yeah, like I was trying to jump on the opportunity. They called me to kind of middle act for a pretty big name here in Montreal. And we got Just for Last Festival coming up, so everything is like eyes on. I want to do this because I looked you guys up and I like what you guys are doing. And I think the Boom Boom Show used to be interviews. It used to be like this style, but then right now we're just trying to generate as many eyes as we can before I go back to it, because my heart is also in interviewing, and I love what you guys are doing. So I was doing that, and the Boom Boom Show used to be that. We will put those back on. We still have them, and you can still check them out on Apple and Spotify, but they are off YouTube right now. Oh, I interviewed some great people too, man.
Nice. And you said you're coming this way. Is that for comedy work? Coming to Michigan way? Or
I'm trying to get on the Motor City Comedy Festival. To be mayor. It's called. But, yeah, you great.
all right, brother, your audio's gone to shit again. So listen, thank you so much. We'll talk again. We'll follow up on this, and good luck tonight. Hope you kill it on the show.
have a great show. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you guys.
on.
Thanks, guys. See you guys.
Bye-bye. But we have an audience and people and martial artists. So I think we should continue this conversation.
Yeah, so I want to, because I wrote it down here about Kyokushinkai. I think it's pretty cool that a wrestling person said, like, I love a classical karate style. That's pretty interesting. And you know, I saw Sensei Legacy's eyebrows go up when he said about Kyokushinkai. And I'm gonna ask Sensei Legacy to we talked about when you come into the dojo. You were in New York City, right? Sensei Legacy. What was it? Where was that dojo? What was it like? What happened? Give us a little bit of, and I'll prod you if you don't give details, but
It was just, we were looking for an association, and I just ended up in New York City with John Pearson. At that time, Kyokushinkai were having this big fight. And so the guy invited me to fight Sato on the Saturday, because they were going to have the big fight on Sunday. So I fought him. It was fun. We didn't end up joining Kyokushinkai because I was looking for Shorin. That was like my idea of being, once I got into it. I tried other martial arts, but to me, you know, Shorin is fit like the right glove.
Nakamura was refereeing that, right? When you fought? That's
Nakamura, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a 7th or an 8th dan at the time.
what was the dojo like, Sensei, when you went in? Upstairs, downstairs, main floor?
It was close to Central Park, somewhere close to that, because John and I stayed in a hotel there. And it was up on, he had the 2nd and 3rd floor of this big building. It was a very nice dojo. Wood floors, really traditional. You know, like a little bit better than average karate club set up probably for that time.
And you said Sato Sensei liked to attack by like doing a stomp before he came after you, right?
I found that. I don't know why he did that. It's almost like it was like ringing a bell when he'd stomp with his front. He'd be standing like this and he'd stomp. I think maybe he intended me to start moving, and then he would go to where I was going and beat the crap out of me, right? But you know what they say, you move faster scared than you are mad, right? So
Yeah, but what do you train to do, Sensei Legacy, for the first noticeable movement? What do you want me to do? First noticeable movement?
just go in. The longer the fight is, the more damage is going to happen to you, right? And so that's sort of my theory, just to get it done as soon as possible. And most people, you people that do tournaments, sit down around the ring. I tell this to my students all the time. Sit down and watch the other fights, because you're going to fight one of those persons. And watch what you do in the first 5 seconds. As soon as you bow and you stand, boom, attack him. The guy will not mentally be ready, because the fight really physically hasn't got started yet. And I told that to Randy one time. He was fighting for this world championship. I said, this guy is not ready. And he went down there. As soon as the guy moved, Randy just fired his punch. He hurt a couple of guys, but he didn't mean it. That's what he told me. But you know, if you think about that, it's the first few seconds, like a second is a long time, especially when you realize that a punch only takes a quarter of a second. Just imagine what you have to do. You're standing there and you got a quarter of a second. You have to see what's going on. You have to block it, and you have to hit the guy or get the hell out of the way. Like, a lot happens in a second in fighting. People never take that into consideration. They're probably, you know, out there in the same thing, but they really don't figure things out so finely, you know.
on that note, Sensei, because I have talked to you, both you and Sensei Pearson, because he was there.
Yeah.
So the stories are the same. When Sato Sensei would like stomp his foot as he would lift his leg, what did you do?
I attacked him. I punched him. Yeah, is that it? Somebody, I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, but he got pretty irritated with you, right? Like Sato got pretty irritated with you, right?
Yeah. He got pissed off at me.
and then
And when we're standing there bowing, he's just stepped in and punched me in the face. He was
right when you weren't fighting, he punched you in the face, right? Because he was mad.
Yeah, we're standing like at attention on the lines. He just stepped across and gave me a punch. I never did hit him in the face. I just give him all body shots because he said you had to fight. You had to fight the next day. But that was a good fight.
And what did Nakamura Sensei do after he punched you in the face?
I didn't know what the hell he said because he started screaming in Japanese. He either said, "What the hell's the matter with you? You didn't hit him hard enough," or or you give him shit for hitting me, but we're standing at attention. I don't know.
Well,
I didn't see the fight myself. I was in it.
it.
John saw it. It'd be best to ask him what happened.
Well, I asked him and he said, you killed him. That's what he said to me. He said that guy was dusting the floor with his ass. That's what he said.
He just wants to be graded. That's all.
People have to understand, right, that Kyokushinkai, especially old school Kyokushinkai, is really tough. If you're fighting somebody, you got to anticipate enjoying some pain. It was Kyokushinkai was the Mas Oyama style of karate, right? And so he was originally Korean, and then kind of they got taken up by the Yakuza. So everybody who fights Kyokushinkai is tough, and some of the folks in the schools in Tokyo are reputed to be Yakuza guys, and they're really tough. So I'm assuming this guy Sato was not an easy guy to fight.
He was small, right? Since I see a little tiny guy, right?
Randy. No, I guess he was, I don't know, 5'11", maybe close to 190 some pounds.
Yeah, you go look him up on the internet. Just put in.
Don't look him up for now. Look him up for back then. Because
I was gonna say, type in 1976 Kyokushinkai Sato, and you're gonna see like this guy that's as thick as he is wide. Like he's just like a square. Like from chest to back, he's wide, and from shoulder to shoulder, it's the same depth. He's huge, big, massive chest.
Well, that's not a bad build for Kyokushinkai because they do so much work on the body, right? Is that, you can punch and kick the body, but you're not allowed to punch the head in Kyokushinkai matches. So you got to be able to, they take a lot of impact. So having a thick body is probably not a bad thing.
I don't think it worked out for him though. As you slide across the floor, shining the wood.
Well, not against Hanshi, but
I wouldn't go that far.
Said to ask Sensei Pearson, and that's who I talked to, and he said you killed him. He said every time he lifted his leg, he was on one leg and you hit him in the body with a reverse punch and he was on the ground. So anyway, I wasn't there. I'm just reliving this.
Just remember, I didn't say that. John said.
That's cool. And he said it before. He said it on the show. So Sensei Copeland said, jump into the center, always take the ring. Like always take over the ring. Yes. I remember him actually saying that to me too. Like, if you have more ring behind you, you're winning. You want to have the most amount of ring behind you when you're fighting. Right? But you said something, and I'd like to ask both of you this question about, you said it, Sensei Suino, just now, but I've heard Sensei Legacy say it a lot, is about that expectation about getting roughed up when you go into a match, whether it's Randori or whether you're doing a karate match. and the mindset that you need to have. That for me has been a huge benefit from my beginning was, hey, I'm going to be fighting. This person's going to hit me. It's going to hurt. I got to get my mind right. I got to bite down on my mouthpiece, flex my hand, and be willing to do that. Do you think that exists today? Is that going away? Like, since, I'll start with you and then since Legacy, like, do you think people still have that mindset? I think it was more prevalent before.
Yeah, probably. But you're talking just martial arts, right?
Just martial arts. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends entirely on the culture of your association or your dojo, right? There's still places to do that. I don't see, we always talk about it around here, pressure testing, right? You got to have a level of risk and intent to make this stuff meaningful, to take it out of the pure kata realm and see how you are. And part of that is, knowing you're going to get hurt and not stopping the second something that just happened the other day when I can't remember if it was in testing or in training our karate guys to prepare for testing, is I had them do some matches, where I was refereeing, and somebody came in and there was like one punch thrown and they both stopped and looked at me. And I was like, what the hell? Really? Like, what are you doing? You gotta keep going until in a refereed match, you got to keep going until the guy says stop or the whistle blows. You have to.
Since Legacy,
You
expecting
have a fighter's got to have a certain amount of toughness. That's just the way it is. Because, if you've never been hit and you get hit, the pain is going to feel extreme to you. But if you've been hit a few times, you can mentally overcome that. So
Last night at our judo class, we had some pairings of people that we don't ordinarily have, and a few people were getting thrown really hard, and their partners weren't supporting them. Right, one of the things you're supposed to do in regular practice when you throw somebody is hold onto their sleeve and kind of take a little bit of the fall away from them, and that wasn't happening as much as it usually does. People were taking really hard falls, but these people have taken thousands of falls. That's part. It's just like getting hit in the gut enough times. After a while, it's not significant anymore, right? That's part of how you build toughness, just getting it over and over and over again.
I think that's one of the real great benefits I got in the beginning is, I started fighting with Sensei Legacy. The first match I ever fought him, I was a yellow belt. He walked past me and said, "You did good in your grading. You ready to fight the old man tonight?" And I thought he was talking about Kenny Ibu Suzaki, but he was talking about him. He was talking about himself. And when he said, "You ready to fight the old man?" he was 42. So like, he wasn't actually that old, right? Like I today am 10 years older than he was when he said that. But I tell people all the time, and this is the truth, I don't think I won one match against a black belt for the first 15 years I trained in Legacy Shorin-ryu. But I just accepted that's, and I accepted the fact that, hey, you get home. How'd you do today? I landed a punch. Well, how long did you fight? I fought for an hour.
Right.
So that means for an hour, I mostly got punched and kicked. But, with care and compassion and roughing me up. And then, I don't know, so I'd say at a certain point, you and I had some pretty rough battles, over top of that convenience store.
Yeah, good fighting, yeah, for sure. Because we trained right.
Yeah,
we trained right. Nobody else was willing to put in that much time.
Yeah, like chip teeth.
Yeah, back to the thing where we were just talking about toughness, and this is a good thing for beginners or for black belts to tell beginners, just to give them a mindset. Two tigers have a fight. One is very seriously hurt and the other dies. So you're one of those two. Think about, put that in your pipe and smoke it. You got to have that attitude so that when you go in and somebody gives you a little tap, you'll say, okay, I'm supposed to feel a bit of pain. So your body's willing to accept it. So you have, and then the amount of pain and it gradually getting a bit harder and harder. It depends on your sensei. If he's a classical teacher and he's willing to take 30 years to train you, that's what it takes. Those little Shaolin kids that grew up to be grandmasters, they were in there for like 70, 80 years. It's not like, oh yeah, I got my black belt in 2 months and I own my own school. It's been doing karate for a year, stuff like that.
I think you should expect to get hurt in martial arts, but not injured. And I think that's the distinction for me. Like, you should not expect to be injured, because injured takes you away from training. But you should be expecting to get roughed up to the most extreme level that you can come back the next day and get roughed up again, right? Like, that's the way I like to think about it.
Yeah, I think you have to accept that if you have a 30-year career, you're gonna get injured, right? Probably a 10-year career, you're gonna get injured. You don't seek it. You hope it's rare. But if you're training out there at the limits, trying to figure out where your limits are, especially if you're with somebody else who's trying to do the same thing, right? There's going to be times when you get a broken nose. That's an injury, right? Not a life-ending one. Broken rib, broken collarbone. In judo, right? Separated collar joint or shoulder, wind knocked out of you, knees, right? Twisted knees. Those are, sometimes traumatically twisted knees, but 1 every 10 years is acceptable if it's part of the learning path,
My fucking groin.
Yeah,
Jeez.
that takes forever to heal.
So Sydney just sent a message. She said, ZT is asking, is toughness the ability to overcome something else? ZT, get on the camera if you can.
You're gonna have to
unless she's like,
What was that question?
yeah, I'm trying to get ZT on to ask the question.
Okay.
It won't let me undo my camera. Oh wait, never mind.
There's that girl. There's that ZT.
Hi.
What's your question?
I was asking, is toughness like the ability? Do you think it's the ability to overcome something, or is it something else?
Who you want to ask that to first?
Sweet Sensei.
Is toughness the ability to overcome something? It's part of the ability to overcome something, right? If you want to do something important, whether it's in school or in the martial arts or in life, you got to do some stuff you don't like. The proportions may change, right? Some things there's 100% you don't like. Some things are 50%. Some things are 20%. Like martial arts, I always say, look, if you got a third of the time you're doing stuff that you absolutely love blissfully, a third of the time you're just putting in the time, and the third of the time you're kind of going, oh, this sucks, but I know it's important. That's a pretty good balance. And yeah, toughness is part of that. It's not the only thing. There's also patience, the ability to think about the future, right? Planning. But yeah, toughness is one aspect of that.
That's legacy or ZT. Sorry, who do you want to answer it next?
Hunty Legacy.
I think in order for you to be tough like that, I think that you have to be strong-minded, because the things are happening to you. How did Ali with a broken jaw finish his fight? You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a broken leg where he couldn't finish the fight. It was a broken jaw, probably hurt like hell, and he did finish the fight. So it's the mental strength to be able to withstand or overcome things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So ZT, listen, if you haven't seen ZT before, on Saturday, she was dressed so nice in a dress, looking so pretty. And you still look really good right now, ZT. And I'm going to answer the question last. And as a martial artist student, you're a younger person. I want to tell you the greatest benefit you'll get from being tough. as a martial artist student. You're going to be able to do the techniques more and longer than the other people who just quit, who aren't tough. A lot of people get punched or they get thrown one time and it hurts. And then they're like, okay, that's it. I'm done. Right. Or you get punched one time and you're like, that hurt. I'm done. But if you're tough, you're going to take it more times and then you're going to learn more because you're willing to get in there and take the damage and learn the lessons. And, you know, a person who can only take one punch and then they quit, or a person who can take 10 punches, the person who took 10 punches, they learned more and they lost more brain cells, but that's a different story.
Thank you. That's awesome.
You're welcome, ZT. Thanks for coming on.
ZT.
Love that girl. I
There's
think we
this-
should, sorry, go
What's
ahead,
that?
Sensei.
Well, I was
No,
just going to, on this same topic, I think we've alluded to this before, but there's just a process that happens with people. When I think about like some of the people on this call, Mark Altamar, Daniel J. Holland III, Pam, people I know well and have trained with a lot, they become tough. And it's not about being tough, like you have your swollen up shoulders, right? Or you're like trying to prove you're tough. You just become one of those people that becomes matter of fact after a while, right? You just put in the time. And that's just a great thing about growing up in the martial arts, having a long-term path into martial arts is, you know what you got to do. So you do it. It's a matter of fact. And you don't have a lot of drama about it. Just makes life a lot easier.
I think it's good if you can come to martial arts with that. Like,
What do you mean?
I think because of my upbringing, I was kind of already tough. Like when I came to martial arts, like I was, I had uncles who were like always pushing me around and hitting me and doing different things. And so I already kind of came into the dojo. And then when Sensei Lacey was like, yeah, you're going to get smacked and you're going to get hit and you got to keep going. I was like, yeah, okay, that seems right. I do think people develop that in martial arts too. Like they start, but I think it's good if I could choose a student to come to the dojo, obviously you want a smart student, but if I could give them a second attribute, I would say, I wish they could be tough when they walk in the door. Already tough, smart and tough is a good combination.
That's funny. I was stubborn or tough in the martial arts when I was young and I started, but I wasn't tough in life. And it took me years of some years of martial arts and having good mentors to be able to like transfer that out. Not sure why that was, but it took a while to get there.
I don't know, when you think about like people like Ali, like Sensei Legacy mentioned his name, like he didn't have like a really affluent upbringing, right? And a lot of athletes that succeed, they don't have a very affluent upbringing. Like they're forced to hustle and be tough and like grind it out all the time. I was basically a street rat in Windsor, right? Like that's, Sensei Copeland's probably smiling because I lived around his dojo, which wasn't in a really great neighborhood in Windsor, right? Like that's, so, you're always grinding it out all the time. But I think that benefited me when I got to martial arts. Like I always said, I wasn't good at anything. Like I was good at being a student and I was good at just doing it more than everybody else. Like just being willing to just continue to do it over and over and over again. Sensei, what are you thinking? What's going on in your brain box about all this conversation?
All sounds like good conversation. Most of the people that are watching, at least at this time, will understand about toughness, being tough in the dojo, you know what I mean?
Yeah, let's put Mark Altamar on the camera. He wants to ask a question.
Yeah,
All right.
got his hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Sydney, put Mark Altamar on.
Here he comes. Slowly.
Lot of oh, that's
Got a lovely picture of
Lake
Italy.
Como. Can you hear me? That's Lake Como. I gotta switch.
We can
cameras.
hear you. We just can't see you.
Yeah.
And even though
Well,
Lake,
it's 'cause I
Lake
got
Como
multiple-
is beautiful.
Ask your question, Mark.
Okay, the question I typed is, you talked about, you said something that you were a tough kid before you got into martial arts. And so my question is can you teach tough? Or is that something you either have or you don't have? Because I knew a lot of really good martial artists that never swallowed their own blood or never got a black eye or whatever. And if you smacked them in the face, that was the end of it. And they were really good martial artists. So I'm just wondering if you think you can develop that through training or what, or it's just a trait that you have or you don't.
Who do you want to answer that first?
Oh, I would like to ask Legacy Sensei. I think tough guy.
No, you wanna, some kids grow up and they're tough already. It depends on your upbringing a lot, you know, like. Even, you have really rich parents or stuff like that, and people do everything for you as opposed to being out in the street and being caught in certain circumstances or being in these circumstances. I think you can, you get those in a dojo. Like when you take classical karate, they think of the whole package, right? So that's one of the advantages that we know that. We've been through it. So in order to be over 30 years, then you can get good advice and you get good senseis because they understand what they're lacking or just had a good sensei through a good lineage. You can acquire being tough. If you're a passive person and you come in a dojo and then you start fighting, you start getting muscular, you start getting confident. And yeah, you can breed that into you, in my opinion.
Thank you. Dolphin Sensei, I uncovered my camera. I had my camera covered
Hey,
up.
you look as handsome as you did on Saturday when you brought me.
I'm looking
Thanks
at
for
the
buying-
screen now. Here,
thanks
let
for
me
buying me the-
switch screens so I can stare at myself while I'm talking.
All right. I think you can build it into somebody in the dojo. Like if you have a good teacher and your dojo is one where, you know, they're telling them like, you know, I punched a little kid in the face like 3 months ago and gave him a bloody lip. He's like 10 years old, right? And I tried to make it a positive experience to be tough, and he was good. Like he was fine, like smiling and happy that he got a bloody lip. Like he wasn't crying or so. I think you can build it into somebody, but again, sometimes life makes you tough, right? Your parents make you tough. Like your upbringing makes you tough. I don't know. I can remember in grade 9, I was like 117 pounds and I wanted to play football. And I didn't want to be a wide receiver. I wanted to play on the defense. So, and I had made the cut and then they were trying to decide what positions people were going to play. And they decided to let us play British Bulldog with full football equipment on. Right. So, and I remember I just walked out to the center of the field and took a knee. I wanted to be the guy in the middle who could just tackle people as they were coming across. And I remember I grabbed one guy by the shoulder pad and another guy, and all of us went down in a heap. And I heard the football coach say, I love this Dauphin kid. He's got total disregard for his own body. That's so again, that's just from like my uncles, like pushing me around and shoving me around. And when I say pushing and shoving, they were punching me and hitting me. So that was just kind of normal, right? Like for me personally. And people, when I say that, they say, oh, like you were abused. And I'm like, I don't think I was. I think that was a gift that was given to me because now I don't mind doing the hard work. Like it's not a problem for me. So
So before I lets Suino Sensei answer, can I press that a little? I think I heard Legacy Sensei and you both say it can be taught, and I understand that answer, and I think you're probably right, but you mentioned you punched a little kid, and little kids learn, I think, much more readily than older people. And perhaps that's a good time to teach, a better time to teach than maybe a 50-year-old man who comes in for the first time. But I also heard you say, Dolphin Sensei, that you enjoyed it from the beginning. And I'm wondering if there's just some people you can teach it to because they already have it and didn't know it. And maybe there's just some people that just aren't going to be tough. And you just can't teach it. That's another question in addition to the one I already asked, but I will throw that to Suino Sensei.
I can
Well,
answer that for you.
What do you
Okay,
got?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There's some people you can't teach. The thing that martial arts will always face is the truth. And some people are inferior to others. And that's a fact. And there's nothing we can do
okay,
about that. But we could always take that person and improve them, make them better than they were. But they may never be like Sensei Spino, for instance. I don't think I've only seen two people that good with a sword. It was him and Yamaguchi Sensei.
actually,
you just
Suino, go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm done.
I was just going to say, Suino's one of my favorite things that Suino Sensei says in the dojo is, he says, after a technique, he says, that's good, but we can make it better.
That's right. And that never ends.
So I don't want to clip Suino Sensei's opportunity to answer if you have anything to add. I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah, definitely in agreement. And I just would add that you and I could stand on the mat at JMAC during a judo class or a karate class or a jujitsu class, and I could show you examples of people who are getting tougher, right? Some after 3 months, some after 6, some after 9. And some of them are kids and some of them are pretty advanced adults. I agree with you. I think kids can learn that stuff faster. It gets to the root quicker. But I'm thinking, I don't want to name names on the show, but I could think of a abundant handful of people that came into JMAC in their 40s or early 50s and have gotten a lot tougher since they've been there.
Yeah, and some people won't get tougher. They're wimps.
Some people won't, but you know, God loves them anyway, and they can go on and have a productive life. But not everybody can be a masterful martial artist.
Well, thank you for taking my question and for your time this evening.
Nice to see you again.
Great to see you, Mark.
I will see you around, and one day I will come to your country up in the great north and visit you in your own town.
You're always welcome here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're at 9:57, and I think we should talk about some of the stuff that has happened and that is going to happen. One thing I would like to talk about just briefly is the Windsor Open since Copeland's tournament. That's, you know, so since the Suino, since Legacy, any thoughts on that tournament? JMAC, I think that might be the first karate tournament that a lot of those people have ever done or JMAC has ever done before. Since Legacy, you refereed all day. Like, so since Suino, what was reported back to you about that tournament?
Our people loved it. The biggest takeaway was that they just felt so taken care of that, you know, everybody from Legacy Shorin-ryu and all of the Copeland Sensei's people were just so kind and helpful because they knew we were coming into it new. And so, you know, our folks have a lot to learn. Most of them haven't fought before, or if they did, it was, you know, 15, 20 years ago when they were kids. Great experience. We'll be back. We'll be at the Matsumura Challenge if we're invited. And they're addicted. Those folks are addicted. You'll see them at more tournaments.
Awesome. Since Legacy, any thoughts from the Windsor Open with Sensei Copeland?
What a great tournament it was. Like, I was in the ring from the time it started till I think 5:45. He said they had planned to quit at 6. I did like the women's division, and man, did I get my eyes. like some of the ladies can really fight, and the cut is absolutely beautiful, as well as weapons. But they're always like the elite persons, you know, and the other ones that are good, but you just need to keep coming back. And that is a great tournament to hone your skills, because it's safe and there are good fighters. You don't get better fighting if you don't fight better persons.
Sensei Copeland dropped a message here, says Stacey, and said he worked like a rented mule. That's what he said. Yeah. And
That's my job.
and Sid's on the call. And yeah. When Sensei Beauregard, Patricia Beauregard went in to fight for the first time, some eyes were opened after the first
And sure.
after the first reverse punch. And yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. My daughter, I'm proud my daughter went there and did good. Both my daughters, actually. Cheyenne did really good. Sensei Copeland she's a brown belt, and he let her go in the black belt women's Kabuto division with about, I don't know, 12 or 14 female black belts, and she won. So I'm pretty proud of that. And yeah, Sid did good in fighting. She won in fighting. So I'm proud of her too. Yeah. So that was the Windsor Open. Outstanding tournament. I know, Sensei Copeland, you say you're always looking for ways to improve, just like all of us. We'll give it some thought and let you know how you can make it better. But at this point, I don't know what that would look like. Unless you want to hand out like $1 million checks to all the center referees that come in, that would make it better. But we can work on that. Coming up next month is 2 days away. We got Camp Bushi coming up, which is our martial arts camp. I know there's 3 or 4, we're bouncing back, right? Like that's something that we've done for a long time. A lot of people are a little bit like, they have some trepidation about it, like parents about their kids going. I just keep telling people, you gotta let them go. Like the kids who've grown up in that camp are outstanding human beings right now. Sensei, I know you've actually come to that camp. You've actually come and taught Iaido at that camp. I remember when you did. I'd just like to ask the two of you, like, benefits of letting your kids go away, do something immersive like this. That's hard. Like, why should people be sending their kids to Camp Bushi? Sensei, we'll start with you, and then Sensei Legacy, I'll go to you.
I'll just share 2 reasons. One is exactly what we were just talking about. Getting in is tough, right? So they don't get to sleep on their own cushy bed in the air conditioning at home. They got to sleep in a tent. I don't know. Do they still camp out, or do they have to go home? Do they camp out? Perfect. They've got to shuffle up their own meals. You've got people telling them what to do. So developing some toughness. And the other one is the real experience, the real immersive experience that doesn't involve a screen. I mean, that's just valuable. So important now. You know, I realize we can't get kids off screens entirely, but if you can give them a few days off screens, it's just going to be so good for their character.
Sensei Legacy, what about you? What do you think the value for kids are for Camp Bushi?
Independence, you know, you're always under the guidance of your mom and dad, even though you're still getting that same care from the black belts. They feel more like they're independent. They are out at the camp. And I would say 85% of the time, you're the person who came, if you don't take them home, because they'll miss you the first time so bad that they always get stomach aches, which is just, really, it's just nerves. But they will change. They will not be the same. They'll be more independent, rely on themselves, realize that they can do stuff instead of when you're there and you're always helping them out. It helps become independent. Plus they're doing something good for themselves, right? It's maybe getting them away from other stuff that may not be quite so good, but martial arts is an honorable thing.
So the only thing I would add to that Sensei Legacy is the connection, I agree with everything that both of you said. They also make lifelong friends and they make connections with people over a week. Like they're with those people are helping them. Oh, my sleeping bag's wet. I got an extra sleeping bag. Oh, I don't like this type of food. Well, you can have my food that I like. They just, and these kids that come there and year after year and grow up, they're just as thick as thieves. Like you see them now, they're like 25, 30 years old and they're still the best of friends and they still want to come to karate camp, which is, that's super cool, right? Like Pleward and Sydney are like planning to book plane tickets and drive there. They take their holidays to come and do this because they grew up in that camp. And I will say as an instructor, that I feel really close to the kids that come to, you get to know them on a different level. Like you get to see them more complete, right? Like get to see them when they wake up in the morning, afraid of spiders, don't like hot dogs. Like, I don't want to shower. Too bad you're going to shower. Like, you know, you get to see all this cool shit about these kids. I love that camp. I can't wait for that camp. Everybody should go to karate camp, Camp Bushi. The last one, I know we're 5 minutes over. I know Setsuna doesn't like it, but you can punish me later. We have coming up the Midnight Crucible, and I've done them all except for the very first one, but that one wasn't super important. So anyway, Setsuna, what do you want to say to people about the Crucible and why they should be doing the Crucible? I think everybody should do it.
Everybody should do it. They should all be terrified. The first Crucible, okay, let's just stipulate that it was less important because you weren't there, but it's the only one where I spent the whole day roasting a sheep while I ran the Crucible and at the end we butchered that sheep and ate it. So that was amazing. But this is the first Midnight Crucible. Normally what happens at the Crucible is I tell everybody, you're going to show up at 6 a.m. and you're going to agree to stay till 6 p.m. and not leave unless it's in an ambulance. And so far, only one person has taken us up on that. But he came back, which was amazing, and sat out the rest of the, sat and watched the rest of the, another 4 or 5 hours after having gone to medical care. But for the first time in the history of the Crucible, September 17th, Saturday, September 16th, we are going to start at 6 p.m. and go until 6 a.m. And some of our activities, like the JMAC 18s and some hikes, will be outdoors to just add a little bit of extra challenge and intensity to the experience. But it's such a great event, man. 12 hours of martial arts training. We do stand-up work, work on power and striking, karate. We do some karate fighting. We do some clinch. We do some takedowns, some throws, and then we work on the ground. We try to change it up a little bit each time, bring some other experts in. And it sounds like a mere catchphrase. I always say nobody leaves unchanged, but that's 100% true. At the very least, you realize, holy shit, I was terrified. I didn't think I'd get through 12 hours. I just got through 12 hours. But other people are like, wow, if I can do that, imagine what else I can do in life. So, man, I'll be doing them forever. And everybody should do them. They're great.
And I'll be working with you on it.
Yes, sir.
That's one of the things I love about it is that we have incrementally made it better and harder. And listen, when I know people are going to say, oh, I can't do that. High level martial artists are going to say, I can't do 12 hours. I've never done a throw. I've never done the person I always point out is there's a couple people, right? Like Abel, this guy, this stud is like 6'2", like, I don't know, like 300 and something pounds. He got out of the hospital 6 weeks before the Crucible, and his doctor said he needed more physical activity. So his family signed him up for the Crucible. He had no martial arts experience, and he came and he rocked it, man. He did 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. And I think that's because of the rules of the road that you give everybody, right? The rules of the road are do what you can with what you got to the fullest, come at 6, leave at 6, and be totally supportive of all the people around you. If somebody is struggling, help that person. If you're struggling, ask for some help. And I don't know, we had the bee, we had the yellow jacket crucible. The
That's
two
right.
crucibles was the bee swarm where we were attacked by bees for the entire crucible. And then the
Mhm.
last one was the no power, lights or heat. And we did the crucible in the dark and with no heat.
That's right. That's right. We always got to add something. Well, hopefully the only thing that we'll add this time is the fact that it's over midnight.
Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
I think we've said, since, one of the things we talked about is we want lots of people to have input on it, but you got to do it once. Like, you can't just be a person who walks in the room and then participates for an hour or shines a light on something for 45 minutes. First, you got to know what a thing is before you can go and participate in that thing. So we want people to actually come do the 12 hours, get in there.
Yeah. Maybe, even some of our listeners, folks who attend it may not know this, but the requirement for someone to teach at the Crucible is 2 parts. One is you have to attend one before you can teach at it. And the other one is if you're going to teach at it, you got to agree to stay for the whole thing. So that cuts a lot of people out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're way over.
we are. And I'm way tired. But we had a short but good conversation with Jamie Mancini.
Yes. Good guy.
Yep.
Um,
And what do we got coming up on the show?
Well, before we do that, I just want to say always thanks to
100%.
Robert Konsky, Andrei Sedishev, Alden Adair, Sydney Dauphin, who's hosting tonight, Justin Shea, Mike Russell, Josh Kishins, Daniel Holland, Jesse Vito Ville, Christiana Landolt. And then, I want to thank them because really they do a lot of the work that we don't want to do. We just don't want to do it. We don't have time to do it and we don't want to do it. But many hands make the load lighter, right? And so them providing that help, it's just great. So what's coming up? One thing I want to just say is go to www.punchkickchokechat.com and you can check out all the previous episodes. You can suggest guests. You can send us messages through that website. It's been hugely beneficial to the show to have that done. And if you don't know, since the Swino commissioned it, since the Legacy, I and Benson helped to pay for it, and Dan Holland III built it. The guy's a genius, in martial arts and technology. But what we got coming up is July 6th, next week, Victorio. That's Johnny Vittorio's brother. Great fight promoter, been around for a long time. July 13th, really powerful episode with Rick Joslin where he talks about death and leaving a legacy. And I'll just leave it at that, but you should check it out. And then on July 20th, we have Bernard Levasseur. That's Ben's dad. Great guy, super good guy, really high level martial artist. He just got graded to his 8th Dan when we were in Lévis, Quebec. Very articulate. It's going to be a very entertaining show. He will be able to log on easily. And he will be able to carry the conversation easily. And then on July 27th, we have a short dropping. That's the one that Since the Legacy and I did, and where we talked about Matsumura. So that's what's coming up in July, and we're already pretty much booked out through August. So, and we'll talk about that then. Since the Legacy, any final thoughts about tonight's show?
No, sir. We're over time. Time to go.
Okay. Well, I'll see you in the morning for White Crane training. I'm excited.
Okay. I'll be there.
Mr. Swino, any final thoughts about tonight's show?
Society accepts mediocrity. Martial arts does not.
Love it.
That's what I got.
Love it. Great thing to end on.
Gentlemen,
Thanks. See
rock and
you.
roll. See you
Yeah,
soon.
thanks everybody who logged in.